estimated wait time is approximately forever.
Cannot afford to be so politically correct anymore. Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
Please continue to hold for the next available representative.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
We appreciate you waiting and waiting. What is it you're waiting for? Do you even know anymore?
These are people who work hard but no longer have a voice. I am your voice.
Disconnected.
Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new live stream. Make sure you guys like this stream down below. It is a call-in stream. As many of you guys know, I would promise that we would do one. Therefore, we went to the retro intro music. And make sure you guys hit 100 likes on this stream before I show my face, because that's how we used to do it back in the day. That's how we're doing it on today's stream. And we'll get there. We have a lot to talk about tonight. And a lot of it does involve Donald Trump and this indictment and the arraignment that he basically walked free from, and why he potentially could be let go, free, scot-free. And the left was coping on Twitter about it today. Some of the DeSantis crowd, that's the diehard DeSantis crowd, the annoying DeSantis crowd, were cheering about it today as well. And we're going to dive into all of this. Also, Biden's White House disgracing what the White House really means, with all kinds of crazy stuff they were inviting in. And we'll be talking about that as well, talking about returning to normal. That was his slogan. He promised to do that. Is he really doing that? Not necessarily. So we hit 100 likes. The face cam goes on. We're almost to 300 live viewers. That's why we like the intros. That's why we like the intro music. But here we are. And we have quite a bit to talk about, quite a bit to get to today. I think we're going to be starting off with the whole arraignment stuff, because this is big time news right here. But also, shout out to the Vegas Golden Knights. I've waited 6 years as a Vegas Golden Knights fan, and finally, we are Stanley Cup champions. We are world champions. It feels good tonight. But not only that, Republicans won an election, a special election that was contested. They flipped a seat from blue to red in Maine that was not anticipated to flip, but they did it anyways tonight. So maybe the tides are turning. Who really knows? But either way, Donald Trump walks away from this arraignment without any conditions. Now, keep in mind, and this is something that's not talked about enough, this judge that's overseeing this case in Miami is a Trump appointee, to the point where it's like, okay, well, maybe there's a chance he actually gets off, because you look into the full scope of everything. There's an ongoing legal battle about this. You look at the Presidential Records Act. There's quite a bit that is not taken into account when the media is exactly covering this case. And it's sad to see. And so many people on the right will jump in too. And they will dogpile because they're the same people in the Republican Party that never liked Trump. They want to get rid of Trump. They've been wrong about so much time and time again. And these are the same people that want to dictate everything. They want to get rid of Donald Trump because they think that's going to help the party. They don't even have the correct takeaways from the underwhelming performances we've had electorally over the past few cycles. They don't understand why Donald Trump won the White House or even the Republican primary in the first place. They don't understand why he's winning it right now. So much so to the point where they're making up all of these nonsensical theories about why DeSantis is actually ahead and why DeSantis is actually going to win this primary. Folks, they don't get it. They don't get it whatsoever. And they're the ones in many cases throwing Donald Trump under the bus. He's not being thrown under the bus just because of the left is being stupid. Obviously, they are. We know that. That's been the case for years and years, and they've gotten worse over the years for sure even. But the fact that you have a rising faction on the right that's so willing to throw Trump under the bus is very intriguing. And you look into it and who's exactly behind it. It's not necessarily people that are on the side of the anti-establishment. They're on the side of those original, Trump ideas, but they just want to take the party in a different direction. They want somebody else who they believe is more capable of winning electorally to win, because that's not what this is about. That's already been disproven time and time again. You look at the clear elements of what it takes to win an election. None of the people that they support have that going for them. And I'm not even going to say that Donald Trump is guaranteed victory in 2024. Some people might even say he's not the favorite. And I can understand why, because you have a divided party, because you have the Republican establishment so willing to destroy this man and to throw him under the bus yet again. But still, you look at other people, you want to divide the party, alienate your own base, and go with somebody else and spend all of this money and time attacking the de facto leader of the party right now. It's not going to end well. And now they're banking on the fact that he gets thrown in prison. This is how crazy these people are. They're banking that he gets thrown in prison for doing something that so many politicians have done that have had a lot less authority to do them, including the current resident of the White House right now who's inviting over all of these transformers to get naked in front of the White House lawn, because that's what he's doing. And that's our current leadership. That's what the regime is focused on as we speak. They're fine with him doing it. They're even fine with Mike Pence doing it, because Mike Pence still represents some minuscule obstacle, right? He represents some minuscule obstacle to Trump getting the nomination, or he's actually bowing down to these overlords over at CNN, MSNBC. He'll trash Trump to get brownie points there. He'll talk about how we need to send unlimited aid, unlimited troops over to the Russia-Ukraine border while we have a border crisis on our southern border right now. They're completely fine with that. They're fine with it. They like it that he's doing that, even though they may disagree with him on quite a few things. And Paul Ryan today actually said something about how he doesn't engage in the culture war. He talks about economics and focuses on those things first and foremost and cares more about the debt than anything else. And then the liberals on, I think it was MSNBC or some morning program that they had, they were just fawning over the guy. And he's, by the way, somebody who's supporting Ron DeSantis, ironically enough, somebody who's trying to make their brand about those cultural issues. But you look into where the GOP is, where that establishment really lies, these people are not on the side of the American people. They're not. And these are the same people that are willing to throw Trump under the bus and throw him to the wolves here. And they're fine if he rots away in a prison cell for something that so many other politicians did, something that may not even be illegal when you examine the legality of the Presidential Records Act. But they're fine with that just so they can get him out of the way so they could resume to what they believe to business as usual. And they could say, oh, well, we're going to win, so it's a good thing. But in reality, they're not going to win. They're really not. There's so many people who are probably not going to vote for them if they throw Trump to the wolves, for one, because Trump is somebody that they look up to because he bucked the orthodoxy within the GOP, because he presented himself as that threat to the system. And yes, he actually didn't fully accomplish the full drainage of the swamp. If anything, the swamp may have even grown a little bit stronger because they had to in order to fight back against what could potentially come. But at the end of the day, it's like you look forward to 2024. He's got 4 years under his belt of experience. He knows how to navigate it a little bit better. His policy's top notch. There's no reason to legitimately oppose this guy, logically speaking, but they still want to go out there and do it. They still want to go out there and get rid of him for whatever reason. There's no real reason we need to. There's none. It's not like we're going to save this country by getting Donald Trump out of the way and by throwing the man who has changed this party and is kind of like molded it into being a more nationalistic, populist version of itself. Throwing that guy to the wolves is not going to save this country. But these people, for some reason, think that it's going to. They believe that Dark DeSantis is going to go out there and somehow drain the swamp. He's been a part of Congress for all these years. He's been a governor of Florida, and even then he's had trouble capitulating to the demands of the state legislature where he has a supermajority. He's never going to have a supermajority in Washington, regardless of what he does. Even if DeSantis somehow becomes the nominee, there's no guarantee after the new Supreme Court decision that Republicans are even going to have the House. To the point where it's like, okay, the guy's never even going to have a majority potentially because, midterm year, you'll usually lose seats and his popularity as president will likely dip between now and then because that's how things happen. So let's say he somehow pulls a win in the primary and the general, which is not going to happen, out of his rear end. It's not like he's going to get anything done. It's not like he's going to even get nearly as much done there as he's gotten done in Florida. And when you have Donald Trump in there, it's different because he changes the conversation regardless of what side you're on, regardless if Republicans even have, one chamber in Congress. He still dictates the conversation. He still moves that needle of the culture, and he's still the figure that can sow doubt in the institutions that have been screwing over the American people for so long. There's no reason to get rid of him, but they want to get rid of him because they know he can't lose. They know he cannot lose. The DeSantis people will say, well, actually, they just want to help him in the primary, but weaken him in the general. It doesn't really work that way because every single poll we see, Biden's in the 30s with independents. Trump may not be much higher, but the independents don't like either candidate. And those who didn't like Trump before because of whatever reason, and they have the TDS, they're still going to have the TDS, and they're still never going to vote for him, and they'll say, this is the biggest deal in the world, Trump should be in prison, you name it. And then you're also going to have the independents that are on the Trump side of things that are going to say, this is politicized, it's just another weaponization of the two-tier justice system against dissidents to the regime. And then you're going to have the people in the middle who just say, you know what, I actually care about the issues. And if Donald Trump's going to be talking about the issues and he's going to say, the reason why they're coming after me is because I spent 4 years fighting for you. We need to do this, this, and this. On the economic side of things, we're going to secure our border. We're going to restore peace and prosperity abroad, bring back the American exceptionalism to an even higher degree than the first administration he had. Well, that's a winning message for those voters. So this notion that, Trump can't win, it's going to hurt him, it's not there. It's not. And they know it. And there's a clear reason why they're trying to bring him down, because they don't want him to be the nominee, because they know he probably does go out there and defeats Joe Biden, and they don't want to deal with him again. And they think throwing all this stuff at him is going to hurt him among the primary electorate. Guess what? They did the same thing, maybe not to the degree they're using it in the legal system, but they hit him with a lot of things they thought would sink him in the 2016 primaries. And guess what happened? He kept gaining stronger and stronger and stronger as the months went on, and he did very well. And he actually won independents, by the way, back in 2016, and he doesn't need to win them now to win the election, because a lot of those independents that he won actually became the Trump Republicans, and a lot of them didn't even turn out in 2018 or 2022. But I bet you that if Donald Trump is the nominee, they're going to be back in 2024. And that's something a lot of people are not taking into consideration, but it's very, very true when it comes down to it. So they give Trump zero conditions for this case. They let him walk essentially scot-free, and already it seems like it may be falling apart, because even for the nonsensical Alvin Bragg case, you saw them give him stipulations, gag orders, conditions, you name it, but nothing for this case, which is supposedly like, oh, he's holding these nuclear documents. This is the biggest scandal we've had in our country since Watergate, according to these people, just like 1/6 was basically 9/11 2.0. They say this is Watergate 2.0. Doesn't exactly work that way. Already seems to be falling apart. You have a pro-Trump judge down there in Miami overseeing the case. You look at the Presidential Records Act. He does have the authority to declassify the material. And if you want to say, oh, it's a little bit careless or whatever, you look at what Biden did, you look at what the Clintons have done, you look at even what Mike Pence and the Bushes and all these people have done. The case is not there. It's not a legitimate case that they're going to throw at this guy to lock him away in prison for the rest of his life the way they've wanted to. It's just not. And we'll see what happens when it's all said and done. Of course, we'll let the justice system play out, take its course, you name it. But as of right now, folks, I just don't see it. I really just don't see it. And we'll see what happens between now and Election Day, but there's so much going on. But from what we have in terms of the data, Trump seems just fine. He's doing these speeches. He's doing these events. He's got a chip on his shoulder, but that's a good thing. That means if he does get back in the White House, he's going to go tenfold on these enemies. All this, oh, well, he didn't lock her up. Well, first of all, he should have locked her up, for one. For two, in retrospect, do you think that he wouldn't have? Of course he would have. He's all about retribution. He's all about vengeance. He's all about never giving up. And when there's this whole push for unity or whatever in 2024, if he does end up winning, there's going to be slightly a little bit of a different change, because he's seen this play out before. And for those people that say Trump doesn't learn from his mistakes, they're mistaken, because he absolutely does. He's criticizing many of the people that he's hired in the past. He's lamenting them and saying that he shouldn't have necessarily hired him. And then when he says that, ironically enough, the DeSantis people laugh at him, even though he's doing exactly what they've wanted him to do. So there's really no point in apologizing and bowing down to all of these people. Yes, Trump has made mistakes. We know that. I've called him out on it. In fact, I've been probably one of the first people to call him out on it. But at the end of the day, we have to move forward, and we have to analyze what is best for the country over the next 5 years, because you have the election year, and then you have the 4 years of the next administration, whether it's going to be Biden for a second term, Donald Trump, or whoever. So that's what it comes down to. And as of right now, Donald Trump is the best guy. And Donald Trump, in this poll, gained 45 points in 5 or 6 months or so in Florida. Donald Trump is tied with Ron DeSantis in the primary in Ron DeSantis' home state. If DeSantis cannot win Florida, what makes you think he's going to win any other state? Maybe Utah, you could say. Washington, D.C.'s out there. But besides those two, Florida should be the slam dunk for Ron DeSantis. He's governor there. He won the state big in 2022, and that's one of the taglines the campaign is using to advance why DeSantis should be the nominee for electoral reasons. And obviously, we've covered at length why that's a flawed point of reasoning. But still, if Ron DeSantis cannot win Florida in a primary, he's not winning anything. Make no mistake, he's not winning Iowa. He's not winning New Hampshire. He's not winning South Carolina, especially with either Haley Scott or both in the race. And he's definitely not winning Nevada. So what is his path? Wait until Florida, maybe win it by 1 point? How did that work out for John Kasich? He got drilled. He got absolutely decked. I think he ended up with less delegates than Rubio. And Rubio dropped out like 2 months before Kasich dropped out. So if that really tells you anything. So they know his campaign is a disaster. They know he's on the outs. And this is one of the only polls that shows DeSantis even tied with Trump in Florida. The other polls in Florida have showed Donald Trump in the lead. And this is a poll that's aligned with DeSantis from what I understand. And they had him up by 45 in Florida after the midterms. That lead is tied. And this is a poll with a DeSantis slant compared to a lot of the other polls in Florida. So it's very likely that right now, Donald Trump is winning the primary in Florida probably by 10 to 15 points. It's 2016, the redux. Rubio was waiting until Florida. He dropped out because Donald Trump decked him in Florida. Oh, well, Rubio won Florida by 20 in 2010 or whatever, which technically he did. There were third parties. It was a weird election, but you could honestly make the same argument then that you're making for Ron DeSantis right now, but it falls flat on your face if you're going to be making that argument as to why they're electable if they can't even win the primary in their home state. What makes you think he's going to do well in these other states in the Midwest if he can't even win the primary, even after spending hundreds upon hundreds of millions of dollars, and his supporters come up with the most bizarre copes in the world? And obviously, like I've said many times on this channel, not every Ron DeSantis supporter is somebody who, in the real world at least, is an insufferable douche, hates Donald Trump, all this other stuff. Of course not. The internet is a strange place. However, these are the same people in DeSantis's ear when it comes to policy and when it comes to the people that baited him into running for president, that lied to him delusionally, thinking that he's going to go out there, defeat Donald Trump, despite being 40 points behind, not having really any charisma, and then going out there and defeating Joe Biden in November of 2024. He's not going to do either. You got to do part one to get to part two. He's not getting to part two, folks. There's no way he gets to part two, regardless of what Trump does. He's had all these things thrown at him that historically you would say, oh, that's going to hurt them. That's going to hurt this candidate. Oh, no, it's not. It's rallying the base behind him. The CBS poll, we covered this, but there's been more polls. Morning Consult is Trump at a record. He's nearing 60% in that poll, 61% in CBS. All of these polls have been conducted post-second indictment, by the way, which is something that a lot of people haven't really talked about, but it's true. And he keeps gaining. Ron DeSantis is stagnant. He's not like losing or anything. But Trump is gaining a lot of undecideds. DeSantis' support base is locked in there in the low 20s. And as time goes on, the more people that get acquainted with him, they're going to drop off. And there's a very good chance that even if he spends a lot of money, just like Jeb Bush spent a lot of money, a lot of those same mega donors that backed him and Rubio are backing Ron DeSantis right now. And as a result, for all we know, DeSantis could flame out early, and it would be brutal, and he would basically end his career, politically speaking, especially as more people end up getting acquainted with him, understand who he was in Congress. Maybe he wasn't that big of a deal when it comes to a lot of these national issues, which he wasn't. They get acquainted with his charisma, which is something that does matter a lot more in a presidential election where it's a binary choice, where you have wall-to-wall media coverage of both candidates compared to something like a midterm election where you see commercials that tout like economic metrics or whatever. So absolutely, the Riz factor, the charisma factor, they call him No Riz Ron, another term I coined, by the way, for a reason, because the guy has absolutely zero, and I mean zero, charisma. and he's like robotic out there. It's kind of like Mitt Romney in 2012 with the new software update, as I have said. He talks about, things like he'll add in the anti-woke stuff, and he'll talk about the COVID issue in a way that many like other establishment Republicans weren't willing to touch. But even then, you critique Donald Trump for running a 2024 campaign on 2020, which is not what he's doing, by the way. Didn't mention it once at all during the speech he gave tonight, and hasn't really mentioned it as much as a lot of other people think that he has. But when it comes down to DeSantis, all he talks about is, I did these things as governor back in 2020. So it's like, if 2020 is not a winning issue, why is it a winning issue for Ron DeSantis to talk about it? And this will be an ongoing debate and discussion. I'll be debating a DeSantis fan, kind of a DeSantis fan, I guess I would say, somebody who's not a fan of Trump. On Thursday on this channel, we're going to have the Trump-DeSantis discussion. Hopefully it's going to be more of a productive discussion than like a full-on debate. I think that it probably will be a little bit of a mix of both. But either way, I think it's important we do have these discussions, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about Trump and about how he handled things during 2020, but also about how DeSantis handled things, because how is he able to leapfrog Trump in some people's eyes on these issues? We need to talk about it, because that is something we need to discuss. And when we kind of come to a realization about it, that could erase a lot of the positive standing DeSantis has over Trump among the electorate, besides the people that are just the foaming at the mouth never Trumpers, of which there are many. And we saw this today as well, because you had a guy, and I tweeted this out earlier today, because I thought this was just insane, because you have this guy, Chris. He goes to the Trump protest, the pro-Trump protest in Miami today, and all he does, he's a DeSantis fan, all he does is criticize the Trump supporters and even people like Vivek, who are running for president against Trump, but are still supporting him in this fight outside. So it's like, why are all these people caring more about what happens outside the courthouse than what's happening inside the courthouse? Like, even Ron DeSantis himself, you could say it's performative or whatever. Personally, I think it kind of is at this point. Says like, oh, this is a miscarriage of justice, you name it. He's kind of supporting Trump, verbally, even though he doesn't really mention Trump by name, among all these other things. But either way, everybody knows that this whole thing is a massive, massive sham. All of the legal charges they've thrown at Trump have been a massive, massive sham. And hopefully the court of law will play out the way that it should be, and he'll be able to go free, and that will give him another mandate. But even if he does have these legal problems ongoing, I don't think it's going to hurt him nearly as much as so many people really think that this is going to hurt him. But either way, doesn't matter. What I can say is these same people are the same people who just have been going out there from the movement's inception, just spitting on these people who have ideas outside of the traditional GOP norm. And they decided to just have this hostility towards not just Trump, because Trump is like one man. He can handle himself. They go after what his movement stands for. They go after his supporters. They act very elitist. And it's a big turnoff for a lot of people out there if they see people acting like this on the DeSantis side. And these are the same people that made me, I wouldn't say do a 180 on DeSantis, because I've always had my reservations. You can go back to 2021 when I spoke positively about him like 99% of the time. I still outlined my reservations with him as a presidential candidate. Did a lot more in 2022 leading up to the midterms. However, it's more evident now than ever because he took the bait of the establishment, which was the fear that a lot of people had. A year or two ago, I don't think a lot of people imagined him running against Donald Trump. But the same people that were in the corner of the Bush campaign back in 2016, the Rubio campaign, some of the annoying Cruz crew from Twitter, those are the same people that are the never Trumpers in this day and age. It's 2016 all over again. They're the ones that are allowing history to repeat itself. But hopefully it does repeat itself. And you see Donald Trump go out there, not only winning a primary, but also bringing the fire down the stretch and winning in November of 2024. So this is also true. And we have to beat this opposition, because what the opposition is doing is on a whole nother level. And I'm not going to show what they're doing because everybody's seen what they've been doing. But what we do know is that Joe Biden's going out there and he's holding these events with all of these people, and they're topless. You have these men who identify as women for some whatever reason, and they are topless, and you could see like the mastectomy scars beneath there. For some reason, Twitter allows this, despite the fact that it's like, I don't know why that wouldn't be censored, hypothetically, because apparently female organs do tend to be sensitive in that region. Same thing goes for the man who believes that he is a woman, who is also topless there in the White House front lawn. These are the people he's inviting. He's inviting over these people for topless parties. Is this returning to normalcy? Because I was told Biden would restore normalcy and decency. Because Trump, they said, was unorthodox. And honestly, he was an unorthodox candidate. He was an unorthodox political figure. This is true. However, he never claimed to bring decency or normalcy to Washington. In fact, he claimed that he would shake up Washington. And when it comes to somebody like Joe Biden, he said that he would return to normalcy. You saw a lot of people tweeting for him because everybody knows he can't tweet for himself because he doesn't even know what day it is, let alone what year it is right now. But still, nevertheless, that was the return to normalcy and decency administration we all wanted. And you have people in there that are like furries that he's hiring. He's hiring furries. He's hiring men that believe they're women. He's hiring all of these people. And then he's having these events where you have all these topless people who believe that they are the opposing sex that they were born with for whatever reason. Who knows why? But they're all there. They're being celebrated for some reason. It's a sexual fetish, basically, that they're celebrating in front of the entire world. And this is a big problem, in my opinion. I really do. And of course, even then you have like the DeSantis people in chat saying, oh, well, Trump allegedly cheated on his wife, so everything you say doesn't matter. And it's like, first of all, celebrities engaging in open relationships, if we do presume that that's true, like that's not unheard of at all. In fact, you could say that that's normal. It's not something that I view as right. Obviously, it's not Christ-like. It's not something that should be regarded as normal. But celebrities doing unsavory things in private is something that's pretty much par for the course. Everybody knows that. And who knows what people like DeSantis do in private? We know what Biden does in private. Read his daughter's diary, by the way, if you want to talk about what Biden did in private. Oh, well, Trump allegedly cheated on his wife. Well, at least it wasn't with his daughter in the shower. You know, look at what Biden's doing on that front. Read Ashley Biden's diary if you want a little bit of an insight into that, because obviously there's a lot of subject matter there that's far less normal than Trump, but Trump doesn't claim to be normal. And Trump didn't do any of the crazy stuff in the White House. He did it back when he was a celebrity, back when he was a registered Democrat, even back in the day, if we are to believe that that stuff is actually legitimate and it's actually real. And Trump wasn't exactly normal per se. You know, he had the mean tweets and everything. He was somebody who would attack the establishment, but that's a good non-normal. This is a change of what they believe to be normalcy over to something that is just total maximum degeneracy, because there's no other way to chalk it up. But that's what Biden's going out there and doing. So all these people that want to say, oh, well, Trump did this, Trump did that. It's like, even you see people like Destiny on Twitter tweeting about it. And it's like, you want to talk about what Trump's doing as like the supposed like rebuttal to what Biden is doing right now. It's like you literally let your wife have sex with other men and you're completely fine with that. So, you know, talk about what's seen as normal to these people. That's what's seen as normal. It's a new normal. It's a change of the cultural norms, and we don't fight back against it enough. And then you see Republican governors, even like Joe Lombardo in Nevada, signing all of these pro alphabet bills into law that are catering to the people that were supposed to be, I guess you would say, mobilizing against politically speaking and trying to limit and roll back the clock on some of these things. He's accelerating it, claiming to be a Republican. He's basically becoming the new Chris Sununu, but for Nevada. And like, that's our supposed midterm victory consolation prize that we got out of the state of Nevada. It's ridiculous, folks. It's absolutely ridiculous. But what can I say? We're going to get to super chats. We have a lot to get to, but you have a lot of people out there that don't understand what's going on. That's why I'm here. We're going out there and we are rebutting them, effectively speaking. So we'll see. We have a lot of super chats, though. We're going to start off. Olivia Williams for 5 says, you were a bandwagoner. Why not be a Red Wings fan? Also was a Lake fan until she tweeted the California map. Also, Loomer and Sabatini running in the same district. Well, Loomer claims she's going to run for MTG's district and move to Georgia. So who really knows what the plan is there for her? It's not really my business. I'm not involved with that. But I will say that the Lake California map tweet was dumb. I mean, there's just no other way around it. California is not a red state. Everybody knows that. I mean, you could obviously say that maybe Republicans could do a little bit better there if they were to engage in the left's, type of ballot harvesting more. I mean, they already kind of do that down ballot. It helps them quite a bit, and it helped them a lot in 2022. And I kind of covered that a little bit in my last video about the popular vote. But either way, in terms of the bandwagoning thing, I don't mind the Red Wings. I like the Red Wings, but they do suck right now. And it's not like I was a fan of the Golden Knights because they're good. I started to root for them before their expansion draft even took place. And even then, a lot of people were like, oh, they were handed a good team. But nobody thought before the year started that they would win like 25 games max. And they went out there and made the Stanley Cup final their first year. And they get so much unnecessary hate. So I've really just stuck by them. And I have probably more of an emotional attachment to them than I do the Red Wings at this point. I want the Red Wings to do well for, the sake of the, city and the metro that I grew up in. But I mean, other than that, it's Knights first, Wings second. They're like my Eastern Conference team, I guess. But Riley, the mini Dashend, says, how many electoral votes does Trump need from election night next year for you not to feel worried about faithless electors costing him the election? Well, I'm pretty sure they'll just keep everybody in line if it's 270. I mean, we'll see what happens. I would probably prefer that he wins by more than that. But like I said, if you get 270, you're probably not going to have a faithless elector because the party will do a very good job keeping everybody in check. Although it is true that the Republican Party is kind of a little bit, weak when it comes to that. And we do know that they don't really like Donald Trump that much. But still, I do believe if it's that close and it's a Trump-Biden binary, you will see a lot more people come home, even within the party mechanism, to allow Donald Trump to have enough electoral votes to go out there and win regardless. So, bad people do exist. Says Rep, your stream started at midnight where I live, and I'm conflicted between my sleep schedule and the Decimp roast. Well, you can catch the replay, but you're here now, so that's good. That's what matters. I did start 15 minutes before midnight on the East Coast, I will say, for a reason, but I had to watch my Knights win. I was thinking, do I go live? Do I not? But either way, it's after midnight on the East Coast, and we have 600 live viewers. So, like up the stream. You guys have been awesome the last few streams. Keep the super chats coming. Keep the likes and subscribes coming. Hit that subscribe button. You name it. John Waffle H2P says, worst case scenario, if Trump is forced to drop out and DeSimp wins, we need to focus on the Senate. There are crucial races in Arizona, West Virginia, Montana. Well, the Senate's a priority regardless if Trump's the nominee or not. I agree with that. But either way, I'm afraid that if Trump does get thrown in jail, a lot of his supporters are just not going to feel inclined to turn out. Whether you like that or not, whether you think that that's them being petty or not, is irrelevant. I mean, that's the way that politics works in this country. It's a zero-sum game with this base. And The left has everybody in order. They have their ducks in a row. They're the NPCs. They have their turnout operation. They're going to be set at a very high floor. We need to counteract that. We need to get everybody on board on our side, not worry about their whole like little mind traps that they try to throw our way, trying to get us to fall into, because that's what they do. We need to go on offense. We need to set the narrative 24/7 as much as we possibly can. And whenever we do that, we win. When we hammer home the stuff about Target or Bud Light, for some reason, the boycotts actually start to work. And until yesterday, this whole Pride Month thing was not nearly as egregious as it's been in years past, although with what we saw at the White House yesterday, seems like they had a little bureaucratic help to make it as insufferable as they possibly can, but we'll still have to see what happens between now and the end of the month. It's ridiculous. They make a mockery out of everything, and so many people on the right sit there and cave and say, oh, it doesn't matter, let's just talk about the debt. And it's like, I'm not saying that's not an important issue, but what I'm saying is there's other things that matter besides, my debt, my GDP. And we've been hammering this point home for years, but still so many people don't seem to get it for some weird reason or another, and that's a problem. So Vanessa says not voting DeSantis in 24, 28, 32, 36, etc. Never. Trump, thumbs up, American flag emoji. Well, some people might not agree with that take that, if Trump loses the nomination, they won't vote for him. But the problem is a lot of people think this way for whatever reason, and you can hate on that take all you want. And, I will have my own criticisms of it from time to time, but still, this notion that DeSantis is like eluctable, he's going to win. No, he's going to alienate a lot of people, because if you have an ugly, divisive primary where you take all the donor money trying to oust Trump, who's a hero to a lot of these people, they're not going to turn around and vote for you. They're not, even if they agree with you on a lot of things, which the key issues that brought a lot of people to Trump, DeSantis does not exactly have Trump's opinion on, which is another problem, but that's beside the point. Manny says, thoughts on the report that DeSantis is allowing funds to nude beaches in Florida that allow minors? Is he a hypocrite on the groomer issue? I don't know what that entails. That does sound like something that they'd try to hit with a community note, whether if it was true or not, if this was Twitter. But either way, I will say that it would be sort of hypocritical, I guess, if it is true, having minors have access to those things. I don't know how frequent you would find that sort of thing. And I don't know what minors would actually go to those places. But either way, they shouldn't be allowed there. It's wrong. I mean, you don't let minors into places where, women are dancing, taking their clothes off, strip clubs, you name it. Minors aren't allowed there unless they happen to be, the drag queen days. Then they're perfectly allowed in many cases. Now, thankfully, we're seeing legislation pushing back against that, which is good. But I mean, other than that, it seems like I haven't looked into that. But if that is true, that's not a good thing. And I guess that would be a talking point that would be used against him on that issue. Wholesome DJ Aftershock says, unlike low IQ Buffett, rep high IQ Asian Chad Rufus is happy to shower in the congressional basement shower with Jim Bridenstine and DeSantis. This is actually true. DeSantis had a guy come up and speak at a rally about how he would shower in the same shower with DeSantis. And it's like, okay, this is, camera issue. All right. That's the blooper of this stream. No cat, but we have the camera issue. Hopefully it's situated now. Let me make sure. Seems like it is. But it is true. I mean, you have the shower scenario and all these things. You have Sweatgate, like he's sweating out there. They change his shirt. And it's like, whether you want to say this is being petty or not, it's an optical disaster. And it's going to be meme to hell, but not for DeSantis is a meme that's funny. In the way that even Biden can be a funny meme that people laugh at. It's this is sad. What are you doing? You're just going out there. You talk about how all these people say Trump is a buffoon, he's a buffin, or whatever they want to call him. They'll misspell the word, you name it. But either way, it's just like it's a disaster. The Twitter space was a disaster. His speaking events are a disaster. He has his wife speaking at literally every single event more than he speaks for whatever reason. Why isn't she running for president if she's the one talking for him? He's literally a beta male. He lets all of his staffers talk for him. He lets his wife talk for him. He lets all these other people talk for him. He doesn't talk at all. And the reason why he doesn't talk at all is because he doesn't bring anything to the table. It's all regurgitated nonsense. Not only that, he has zero charisma. Like every single person that like a lot of people I know in politics, politics is not really filled with a lot of people with charisma like you would think, but a lot of people that, on a daily basis, you name it, your average like congressman, governor, they tend to have about the same level or more charisma than Ron DeSantis, which makes him kind of in a way not somebody that inspires people. Like, say what you will about Glenn Youngkin. You could say he's, kind of establishment on some things, whatever. I would think he's electable, though, in a general election, even if I would prefer Trump to Youngkin, because at least Youngkin has charm. He has some ounce of charisma with him. He's got the vest. And obviously people try to replicate it and fail, but like that's his vest. It's his signature. He can go out there and he can do that, and that can help him, and he can win. However, somebody like DeSantis, too robotic, just doesn't resonate with the voter, comes off like an entitled individual at times. And, you see how he responds to the press when he's pressed and he doesn't know how to handle it. He'll kind of lash out in a subtle manner. It's awkward. It's not like he's getting a subtle own in there. It's like, bro, what are you doing, buddy? You could have had it all. You could have waited. Even though you have no charisma and had a weak voting record in Congress, you still could have played your cards better than this. You still could have been the 2028 frontrunner, but instead, what did you do? You decided to go and try to bite the hand that fed you all this way, and not even bite him by being better than him and being more powerful, but biting him by just trying to take the money of the people that hate him, that in many cases would have been trashing DeSantis if he was really as effective as he really claims to be all the time. And as a result, you see what happens there. But it's true. The DM production says Ron DeSantis does nothing but project. The guy is now calling people who dress in full animal costumes sexually explicit. It's as brain dead as Al Gore's wife when he went after Twisted Sister during PMRC days. Well, I mean, furries are sexual. I mean, I'm not going to disagree with him there. I mean, it does seem as if it's something that is sexual. But it really is not a big issue one way or another in terms of, if he says this, it's just based or whatever. It's it's just stating the obvious. Tucson Paleocon says opinions on the trans activist who went topless at the White House. Well, thanks for the 20. We already kind of covered a lot of that, but it just showcases this is the return to normal, guys. It is the return to a normal. It's the return to the new normal, the normal that's set by the globalist American empire, by this administration, by the people that are pulling the strings for Biden. Because, Biden's not doing this himself. Biden didn't sit there and say, well, Jack, I'm going to invite the trans people over, Jack, at 3 o'clock tomorrow. No, of course not. It's people around him that are dictating policy. And when you have a corpse in there, he becomes a Trojan horse for a lot of other things. Biden from the 90s as president right now, I wish Biden from the 90s was president right now. He'd probably be a better president than a lot of Republicans if you took all of his policy positions. He was anti-gun ban. He was, kind of pro-life. He was pro-crime bill. He was tough on crime. Republicans try to hit him from the left on that. It's what are you doing? But it's him back then, we wish that Biden from the 80s or the 90s was president right now. We should. People might find that a little bit out of line if they're kind of new to politics, but Biden now just is a shell of his former self, and he's become a Trojan horse for a lot of the worst people in his movement, in his party, to allow them to do whatever the hell they want to do, and it just doesn't end well for anybody. It doesn't. Endeavor25 says West Coast is best coast. Fight me. I don't know what that refers to necessarily, but West Coast is technically right because Vegas, even though it's not West Coast, it's still West. Vegas won the cup. Florida, they got sent packing. I guess that's another DeSantis L in a way, which is kind of funny. But given the fact that it would also be a Joe Lombardo victory, I can't really take too much pride in that. But either way, go Knights go. They got it done. That's awesome. Finally, 6 years. Should have been done the first year. But sometimes we like a little bit of delayed gratification, but it's been a good day. Miss Winnie says, as a cancer survivor and a child of a mom who didn't survive, I think Ron and Jill Casey should wait 5 years until the mom of 3 kids is cured. Why the rush? Well, that's another thing. They say you can't attack Casey because she has been under fire for her health and she survived cancer recently, which obviously, you survive it, I guess, kudos, right? And I don't think people should knock that or make that political necessarily. But if they say you can't attack her because of that, why is she out there on the campaign trail attacking Ron's enemies for him? Like, she is completely not immune from criticism because she's out there 24/7 on the campaign trail, you name it, just running her mouth on Trump and all these people. So it's like, yeah, absolutely. She's fair game. Like I said, avoid the health, but she, as a whole, is indeed fair game. And if this is something that's so serious where you can't attack her at all, it's like, then why is DeSantis running? Like, Biden didn't run in 2016 in part, even because his kid had cancer. There was an issue there. And I know that obviously Casey's in remission. It's a little bit different, but to say like, oh, you can't attack her at all for anything because of the fact that she had cancer recently, it's like, I'm glad she survived, but if she's going to be out there attacking Trump, attacking all these other people, then it's fair game to criticize back. It's like, why is she out there on the campaign trail? Why is she talking for DeSantis? Why is DeSantis shorter than his wife when he's wearing high heels? That's another question that I need an answer to by the DeSantis camp, but I haven't really gotten an answer. But we're getting to a few more super chats. We will get to a couple call-ins, by the way. I want to get to call-ins because I almost forgot that we are doing call-ins. I said second hour, and it's not going to go for a full hour, but we'll do a couple call-ins this stream because I promised that we'd do them. So we're doing them. So let's see. Sam Madsen says, do we finally knock off Cartwright and maybe Illinois 17th and Indiana 1st to offset some of this redistricting crap? Possibly. And maybe we can redraw Ohio, North Carolina if we can. We'll see. David Zentara says, Ryan, FYI, voted for the Emergency Economic Stabilization Act bank bailout of 2008. Why would anyone want to know what he has to say is beyond me. And that's funny. The same people that say J.D. Vance is evil and socialist because he does these bipartisan things that help everybody will say, oh, well, we're moderate and we're the real conservatives, even though we sign off on most of Biden's spending bills. And it's like, okay, how exactly can you say that Vance is the problem or Vance is the socialist, despite the fact that you guys are giving the left everything they want and getting the country further and further into debt? These people are just morally bankrupt, for lack of a better term, when it comes to economics. And that's one of the reasons why the Republican Party has such an issue in the Midwest with their brand. It's not Trump. They blame Trump for their Midwestern losses. It's like, really? Even though he stays out of races, he doesn't get involved at all, at least in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, they still blame Donald Trump for that. Despite the fact that the more pro-Trump candidate down ballot ended up winning that night in the same district where the top of the ticket ended up losing that district. So it's ridiculous, folks. They will never take blame for anything. They'll always blame our side of things, but they're the ones that usually are at fault. And what do you want me to say? They're the ones that control the levers of power in politics. It's not us. It's the establishment. So regardless of what happens, losing is more on them than it really is on anybody. Just based off that fact alone, just think about basic common logic. The DM Production says, I think J.D. Vance would be electable in a general election. Yeah, I think he would. And even then we talk about like charisma or whatever, because like from what I can tell, he has more charisma than DeSantis. Can he like bring the house down though? I mean, that's what you need to do. If you can't bring the house down at a rally, but like you don't really have to. Like he still would be decent enough, but I think he could. I think he's getting better at that aspect. And I like JD Vance a lot. I was initially a little skeptical of him. Even then, I was like, he's still the best in the primary. And then as more time went on, he proved himself more and more and more to me as a candidate. And I enthusiastically backed him by the end of the primary. And then I was very happy to see him win by a likely margin in November and go on to be one of our best senators. And he has not disappointed. He's not been somebody to just get in there, defect to the establishment on the first day. No, absolutely not. He's been extremely solid, and he's stuck to his word, and we need more people like that in the Senate, and sadly we don't. Like the House is the people's house, is more representative, but we don't really see that in the Senate, which is a problem. Literally, God says if you're a Knights fan, you're a Raiders fan too. Sorry, those are the rules. No, those are not the rules. Those aren't the rules at all. The Raiders are literally from Oakland. They're new to the Vegas area, for one. Second of all, I've never actually been to the state of Nevada. I've flown over it. So it doesn't exactly work that way. That's like the same people that say, well, you're a Lions fan, a Pistons fan, Tigers fan. You have to be a Red Wings fan. It's like, I like the Red Wings, but I'm a Knights fan, and some people might not like that. They think I'm a bandwagon. They can think that. They're wrong. What can I say? All right, guys, that's it for Super Chats. If you guys want to send in any more, feel free. You know what the Super Chat button is. It's the $ button there in the bottom corner. But we have a couple people in the live chat ready to take calls right now. We're going to get to some people. For those, just a little bit of a heads up. If you are calling in, make sure your mic is working. Make sure that you do not have the stream on in the background, because it's a little bit annoying to a lot of people that may be in the audience, including myself. Just a heads up. Also, if you guys want to join the stream, the link is in the pinned chat there. There's no guarantee that you'll get in tonight, but if you don't get in, just message me first thing. But we have 4 people already waiting. I want to ask a question that's a little bit different this time. It's going to be about the indictment. What do people make about the indictment? Do they believe it's going to hurt Trump in the general? Because we know that it's going to help Trump in a primary. We've seen that in so many rounds of polling. But will it help him in a general? We're going to see. But first of all, we're going to drag in our first individual. We're going to drag in Don Jr. Don Jr. has called into the stream before, like 3 years ago. It's been a very long time. It's not the real Don Jr. It's not like Trump's son. Just the account's name is Don Jr. So we're going to go to Don Jr. Don Jr., you're on the air. How's it going?
It's been too long.
I believe it has. But, thanks for calling into the stream. You're our first caller of the night, as I'm sure you know. But this whole Trump indictment thing, we've seen what's happened over the past few years on this channel. You've been a viewer, and we've seen all the craziness. They try to get Trump over everything. First, it was a perfectly normal and great phone call, as Trump said. Then it was over 1-6, and then they try to get him over all of these other things, and they raid his house for these documents, and now they're trying to get him on this, even though it does seem as if it was an ongoing legal battle, and that other presidents and prominent figures have done the same thing. And it also seems like it's helping him in a primary. But in terms of the general election, do you think that Donald Trump is going to go to prison? Do you think this is going to hurt him? Do you think that he'll be disqualified? What do you think is going to happen because of this? And this is something we're going to ask everyone in chat tonight.
Right. I don't think it's necessarily going to hurt him in a primary, because for all of Donald Trump's shortcomings as, I guess, a politician, the one thing that I do appreciate is his, I think, his genuine concern for his voters, as well as the nation as a whole. And I think he generally hits the nail on the head when regarding policy, but also I think he is really going full base mode now, to the point where the deep state and the administrative state are going after him guns blazing. And I think because of that, Republican voters kind of see this for what it is, just a sham. And I think what really kind of takes many Republican voters back is just the lack of pretense that these indictments were handed down. Like, there wasn't really even an attempt to even try to lazily gaslight us. It was just kind of like, oh, we're going to indict him, deal with it. And it's like, I mean, I don't really want to use whataboutisms, but it's just so on the nose to the point where you just scoff at its face, really, as a Republican voter in the primary. So that's why he's not going to hurt him in the general, no, at least in the primary. In the general, I think it's a bit more mixed. Democrats are going to vote against him regardless. You know, a lot of them have this hive mind, orange man bad mentality. It's not going to work. Or I'm not saying it's not going to affect that. When it comes to independents, independents are kind of a misleading term because there's such a, I guess, a homogenous bunch, or I guess, sorry, a heterogeneous bunch, shall I say. Yeah, you have your kind of quote unquote like Northern Virginia, college educated, suburban quote unquote independents who don't like labels but vote Democrat anyway. Maybe if they had any thoughts of voting for Trump, you know, that's off the table now because they instinctively trust the credentialed class out on its face and doesn't question them at all. But for those independents who have kind of fallen out of the political process, I think this potentially gives Trump a massive inroads because they don't trust our institutions. They really feel let down by them. And I think in a weird sense, this really makes Trump the real deal in their eyes. So I think, and I know my answer was long-winded, but I think in a sense it could help him. And it also just makes the Biden administration look desperate. Biden hasn't even really talked about this. He will try to gaslight people about like, oh, I had nothing to do with it. But let's be real. I mean,
This
the
is
DOJ,
DOJ, yeah.
it's his DOJ. They answer to him. I mean, Merrick Garland is a complete hack of an attorney general. Thank God he's not on the Supreme Court. And Jack Smith is a deep state hatchet man. Like there was no fairness, but also you look at, when Merrick Garland tried to have some sort of impartiality by appointing a special counsel for Biden's issues. And what have we heard?
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it was, it was the bare basic of it was like the bare minimum of window dressing. And it's not going to lead anywhere. And ultimately, when Merrick Garland announces no indictment of Joe Biden, he's going to, some reporter's going to ask, well, what's different? And he's going to try to gaslight us and be like, oh, well, Biden cooperated and Trump didn't, something like that. So you just kind of have to accept it for what it is. It's them putting their thumb on the scale.
And I agree with that. And also, it's not a good look when you're a sitting administration and you are trying to, persecute your own political opponent for something that you do. I mean, this is what dictatorships do. We hear a lot about the evils of Putin and Russia and China and all these things, but we don't exactly talk about what goes on our home turf quite a bit. And it's very true that we have many problems here as well that don't exactly get talked about. And this is a prime example of one of them. And I think it's probably one of the most egregious that we've seen so far. And there have been many, things that have been weaponized against Trump, and they've been used, I think, as a little bit of a precedence to further and further the attacks on Trump and his political viability. But when it comes down to independence, I don't really think it moves the needle a whole lot whatsoever. Like you said, there's so many disaffected voters that a lot of people don't understand what it means to be an independent, and they don't necessarily vote on this. And to be fair, they may not be voting on the Hunter Biden scandals or whatever that Biden may have on the other side either. But they're voting based off of their pocketbooks. They're voting on what they see as best for the country, foreign policy, trade, etc. A lot of them didn't show up in 2022. A lot of people say we failed with independence then. We're going to fail worse with Trump. And it's like they don't really grasp how that necessarily works. But either way, thank you for coming on, Don Jr. From Discord. I appreciate it. And, you had a lot of good points tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And it's true. And we have another super chat, I believe. We're going to get to a few other people. LF Fun says, is Bill Mitchell the most unhinged to simp? He literally makes me never want to even consider DeSantis with each tweet. He's fallen far since 2016. Well, I always thought that Bill Mitchell was insufferable when he was a Trump supporter, when he was on our side. And I felt the same way about a lot of other people like Jenna Ellis. And those are the people that are right now defecting on a whim for Ron DeSantis. If a lot of people get paid off by this super PAC, and even some good people that I like Steve Cortez, for no reason. He was fully on board with Trump, but then he kind of brags subtly about getting paid by Never Back Down PAC, and now he's a DeSantis fan, big DeSantis supporter, and just praises everything DeSantis does and tries to undercut Trump 24/7. And it's like, this is just not the guy that was doing the Maganomics for 6 years. You name it. I understand even maybe, yeah, you could make a case for somebody wanting a change of pace or preferring somebody else other than Trump. But at the end of the day, just the pure just vitriol for Donald Trump that a lot of these people have, and maybe not in the case of Cortez for his supporters, but a lot of people for his supporters as well, that just, it wasn't there. If Trump was this awful president who was an awful leader, why weren't they criticizing him in 2020? I was criticizing Trump for things in 2020. They weren't criticizing him in 2020 or 2019 or 2018 or whatever. But it's ironic because the only people that were Trump's diehard core base, and that now that Trump is kind of reverting back to that, you kind of see less criticism there. And then we look at these people and it's yeah, this is why we are defending Trump so much, is because the insufferability of the establishment that is opposing him is drawing a lot more people directly to the hands, right back to Donald Trump, right back to where they started. So either way, we're going to go directly to Magnanimous. Magnanimous called in last stream. He's calling in this stream yet again. Magnanimous, you can unmute whenever. You are on the air. How's it going, man?
Yes, I can hear you.
Well, that's good. I'm glad. So I asked this question to Don Jr. from Discord, not real Don Jr. I think that everybody gets that by now, but I'll ask the same thing. You see this indictment. We saw the first one bounced off. Second one, primary polls bouncing off. General election, because a lot of people are afraid. Do you think he's potentially going to be DQ'd? Do you think he's going to go to jail like so many people are saying? Or do you think this is not going to hurt him in a general? What do you think is going to happen, electorally speaking, with the whole Donald Trump second indictment about the documents scandal, so they say?
Well, I don't think overall it's going to dramatically hurt or really help Trump in the general. In the primary, I think it's definitely going to help him.
Absolutely.
Because it's definitely going to activate the base. But I'm not going to be super deluded and say, wow, this is going to propel Trump to a landslide victory or something like that. Because our country is very divided.
Absolutely.
And people who hate Trump, even if Trump turns out to be completely innocent, they're not going to vote for Trump anyway.
Yeah.
And people who love Trump, even if he turns out to be guilty, they're going to vote for Trump anyway. So Trump is also one of the most polarizing figures that we've had in American politics, I would argue. So I don't think overall the general argument is not going to really change. And also, I think I actually wrote this on True Social as well, but I think the only reason why the GOP and the deep state, or whatever you want to call it, is kind of conducting some sort of investigation on the Biden family's corruption, I think, is to basically construct a narrative that they're being fair and impartial in their treatment of Trump and Biden. So they're basically justifying this indictment of Donald Trump, and by saying, see, we're investigating Biden too, so it's not politically motivated, and they are they are basically magnanimously touching Biden's corruption. So, but we all know that nothing's going to happen with Biden, and the GOP is completely useless, so they're not going to do anything to actually conduct a thorough investigation on Biden's corruption scandal. So I just don't think it's really going to help. And also the indictment brought by the federal prosecutor, Jack Smith, against Trump is also being criticized as false and should be dropped immediately by a lot of conservative media outlets, not the Sim ones, because a lot of the Sims are actually happy with Trump getting celebrating screwed legally. So that really disgusts me a lot. And I I just don't buy it. I don't think it's going to electorally like help him a lot. I'm not going to lie, but I don't think it's going to electorally like kill him.
And I don't think it's going to like help him a lot either. Like, even though Elon Musk, who's like the DeSimp, from what we know, says, oh, if he gets indicted, it's gonna help him.
Elon Musk is basically using Twitter to rig the election. I mean, rig the primary for DeSantis.
Well, community notes.
Look at the community notes.
I mean, they've done
Look
it
at the
to
community
me.
note. He's basically rigging it for DeSantis.
Yeah, I mean, he's trying to at least fortify it as much as he possibly can. I don't know to what extent it's going to help. Twitter's not real life, as we know, but a lot of people do use it. But I don't think it's going to help him in a general a whole lot. I don't think it's going to hurt him. It might be a non-factor, might not even be a top 5 issue. We know how politics works. A week in politics is like a year, and we know that by now, especially in the Trump era. But, you know, the thing that you didn't bring up that I'd like to bring up is the whole argument about, but the independents, the independent voters, they say.
Exactly. The independents, like, you know, you've mentioned this a lot. So, like, I don't know, like 6 or 7 years ago, definitely winning a lot of independents would have mattered when you consider the electoral system.
Yeah.
But now, ever since 2020, they used COVID as an excuse to change a lot of election rules, but I'm not going to mention that due to, you know,
well, they did. I mean, well,
thing. But so after that, basically turning out the base and harvesting ballots and funneling mail-ins has become way more important than winning independence.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and they know that, and we don't do that. So,
yeah, exactly.
I mean,
so I think Trump definitely has the advantage over DeSantis when it comes to turning out the base more actively. And DeSantis, like, the DeSantis fans have to remember this. 2020 was basically the worst. I'm just going to mention this and finish my interview because I don't want to, like, keep it too long.
Yeah, you're fine.
2020 was basically the worst year for an incumbent to run. And many people who follow politics in 2020 would remember that basically the media, the academia, the deep state, every single, like, activist or whatever you want to call them, they utilized every single political apparatus available in their arsenal just to mute Trump, just to make Trump lose. They lied about George Floyd. The BLM saga basically destroyed the whole nation and igniting the nation with flames. They lied about the Russian collusion hoax. They basically censored every single allegation regarding the Hunter Biden scandal on every single social media platform. They changed all the election rules by using COVID as an excuse, and in Pennsylvania especially, without the consent of the state legislature. And they blocked all stories about COVID being leaked from the Wuhan lab. They basically lied all about COVID. And now the Simps have the audacity to write all this, like, COVID revisionist history and saying, oh, Trump should have fired Fauci, whatever. Just makes me, you know, it just makes me want to puke.
Those are the same people that would have been up in arms the next day if he did it. Oh, his electoral chances are going down the drain. He can't win.
They would have been the first one to basically, like, shed on Trump had Trump fired Fauci in 2020, eluctability or whatever.
Yeah, and I think
it's just basically hindsight bias. Everything DeSantis fanboys say about issues like the woke stuff and the vaccine stuff, the Fauci stuff, all of them have been addressed by Trump supporters like 3 or 4 years ago. So they don't have anything original. That's the thing. Like, oh, woke is a problem. Yeah, we know. We've talked about that like 4 or 5 years ago. Oh, they censored the Hunter Biden scandal. Yeah, we know that. You called us basically conspiracy theorists back then, you know? And so that's why I just don't like them. Everything that comes out of the Sims is just hindsight bias. Hindsight bias. They don't have anything visionary and original. So I'm always Trump over DeSantis.
And the other thing that the last thing that I want to touch on regarding the hindsight bias, because you brought up a good point with the whole jab stuff. I don't know if you know the Max guy from Twitter.
Oh, I know that guy, yeah.
You know, December of 2021, this guy was saying Trump was not pushing the jab enough. And this is the same guy that said to get vaccinated, to own the libs,
well.
All these same people. But now they want to pretend like they were always on the right side and that this is why Trump lost. And it's like, yeah, I understand there's legitimate criticisms of Trump and things he did in 2020.
Sure.
Anybody can, especially with the hindsight bias, you could point to them. But you don't really have the right to talk when you probably, I mean, these people in many cases likely got the jab and shilled for it relentlessly. Ron DeSantis shilled for it. You know, Pushaw said 1,600 times, and apparently he magically like changed his mind or whatever. I don't even know if he ever went on record and did that. But I mean, either way, it's ridiculous how they operate. And
it's absolutely ridiculous, and they just refuse to admit that they were even wrong back then.
Yeah, and it's funny. They say Trump
I bet
refuses.
If you conduct a survey, and I'm really going to finish this off because I want to let other people speak as well.
Yeah, we got two more.
I bet if you conduct a survey, there are way more DeSims who have taken the vaccine than Trump supporters.
Absolutely.
I can bet all my money on that.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's going to be exceptions here and there, but I mean, objectively speaking, that's the way these things work. So thank you, Magnanimous, for coming on. You know, raised some interesting points. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay. Any super chats you guys want to send in, feel free. We're still going. We're an hour and 15 minutes in. Still almost 500 people in the chat already. Still, even though it's currently 1 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast, we're still going strong. Like that stream up. Like up the stream. Subscribe if you haven't. Hit that bell if you're subbed. If you guys want to join the call, technically you can join the Discord server. If you join the website at redeaglepolitics.com for next time, or maybe if you join really quickly, you can get in. But we have two more people. I know SoCal called the last stream. I think Mid-Missouri may have called as well. I don't know. We'll drag him in first. We're going alphabetical order tonight. Mid-Missouri, conservative. You're currently on the air. How's it going?
It's going.
So this is a question I've been asking people because we see the indictment. The first one, obviously, we saw that. It seems like it's really a nothing burger. Then you have the second one that everybody's making a big deal about. And this is something that has helped Trump in the primary so far, electorally speaking. But in terms of the general election, let's say Trump gets the nomination. Is this something that's going to help him, or obviously not help him because it really seems like it's not going to help him a whole lot, but is this something that will really hurt him as much as some people will say, or what will the electoral outcome be because of this whole thing? Or like potentially is there going to be other legal problems you see? Do you think they're going to put him away? Like what's the deal here?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to do that much. I don't really think it's definitely not going to hurt him. Yeah, especially since it's not like Biden has been doing a great job as president or that he's very popular.
I mean, that's true. He's not. And so many people say it's all about Trump. It's a referendum on Trump. And that may have been true in 2020 when Biden got to hide in the basement and Trump was out there running the country. However, we've seen Biden run the country for 4 years, and Trump is still, being Trump, but he can now draw that contrast between the administrations. And if he's able to do that with the messaging and say they're trying to put me away because I was the better leader, they're standing in the way of American prosperity because they're globalists, they're whatever, I think that that's a winning message. And if anything, he could flip the script that way if he manages to spin it that way. I'm not sure. Would you say you agree with that? Because I think that seems to be the best way he can kind of weaponize this in his favor.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And it's also not like Biden isn't corrupt and hasn't pretty much had these kind of issues, if not a lot worse when it comes to classified documents.
And that's technically true. And I think drawing the contrast between the two-tier justice system, because maybe they could say, oh, well, he's also being investigated, even though it's like a cupcake investigation. It's not even like they're trying. Or it's like, oh, well, he's cooperating. But like, what are they just saying? Biden, did you take those documents? No, I didn't. Okay, investigation's closed. Because that's how they operate. It's definitely something that is not a serious evaluation of what's going on. It's all performative, and I don't think it's going to amount to anything. They're not going to obviously get Biden behind bars. I don't think Trump's going to go behind bars, given what's going to happen to the whole situation. Seems like the judge is more favorable. Jury, if it's like in Miami, probably going to be more favorable compared to a DC jury, and they'll plead his case with the Presidential Records Act. So, I mean, we'll see what happens there. But, I mean, other than that, we'll keep watching the polls for the general as well. But, you know, thanks for calling in, and thanks for your input, Mid-Missouri. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Okay. So we'll go to SoCal in a minute. Do we have any more super chats? Doesn't seem like we do. If you guys want to still send them in, feel free. This is not the last call. We'll do the last call after the last call, no pun intended. But we do have 400 live viewers in chat, which is pretty good for after 1 a.m. It's a good little late night stream, and we love to see it. And sometimes we'll stream earlier. We're going to be debating or having a discussion with a DeSantis fan, a prominent DeSantis fan, or somebody that at least is critical of Donald Trump and prefers DeSantis to Trump. We're going to be having a live discussion, kind of a debate thing, happen on the channel on Thursday at, I believe, 3 p.m. Central, so it'd be 4 on the East Coast. So, I mean, it's going to be something that you guys are going to want to be there for certain, because it's going to be interesting. But other than that, I don't believe we're streaming until Sunday after that. So it's still good to get in a late night stream where we have so many people tuning in. More people that are watching the Christie Town Hall, or a lot of these DeSantis speeches, even on these networks. They tune in to watch me at 1 in the morning. Isn't that awesome? So we'll go to SoCal. SoCal, populist. Last time we had technical difficulties at the start with SoCal. Hopefully we don't have them this time around. SoCal, you are on the air. Feel free to unmute whenever.
Hey, what's up?
Okay, so it is working this time around. So I've been asking this question to a lot of people about what they believe is going to happen with the whole indictment scenario for electoral means. And it does seem as if this is something that is not obviously primary polls. It's helping them. So I don't think we need to really touch base on that. I think that unless you're going to be, people out there are going to be diehard DeSantis fans, wish casters, they know this is not hurting Trump in a primary. The general election's a different animal. I'm not going to sit here and say it's going to help him a lot. I'm not going to also sit here and say it's going to really doom him and he's going to lose Texas and all this stuff. But what's your take on the electoral effect from this? Because it seems like, yes, we have a polarized country. The Trump people, the people that are right-wing in general, they're going to be on Trump's side. The people that are left-wing that are going to vote against him anyways, they're going to say this is the worst thing ever. And then there's like the mythical, rare, true, independent out there that people always love to talk about, but we can't really seem to find them very often. How are they going to really receive this? Like, what's the take here on the electoral effects of this through your lens? And I'll let you have the floor and you can answer.
So, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. Like you said, it helps him in the primary for sure. Not that even matters that much, but in general, I think it kind of goes with what my theory has been about income being the most important factor in 2024. Because I think if you have a higher income, you're more likely to be swayed by stuff like this. Because you don't need to put food on the table. Well, I mean, you do, but it's not like a big issue for you. But if you're lower income and you're struggling, you're paycheck to paycheck, I think that you don't really care about stuff like this. And I think Trump's path to 270 goes through people like that in working class areas.
I mean, that is largely true. And a lot of those people that have been voting away from the Republican Party, that have been moving to the left in recent years, do tend to be the elite class. Republicans, they used to be the party of the college-educated white voters, the country club Republicans, they would say, the 1% party. That's kind of shifted and changed to a large degree, and we see those voters tending to move to the left on social issues. Republicans and economic issues tend to be more populist. So overall, I think it does come down to what the spin of the messaging is, because like I said, if Trump can weaponize this in a way where he could say, hey, they're out to get me because I fought for you. You saw the lower income brackets rising faster than the high income brackets. You name all the policies that he put into place that were helpful and all the parts of his agenda that he wants to accomplish that would help out the people that you mentioned that the path to 270 goes through. And it's like, that's what the election will be decided with. And definitely it comes down to how Trump spins it. If he's going to be saying, I'm a victim 24/7 without tying it to the issues, I don't believe it's something that will help as much as it could. But if he does spin it the right way, maybe it could actually help him marginally get some of those voters that he can sway on board. Either way, I think the issues will really dictate what this comes down to. Personally, I don't know if even the Hunter Biden stuff is going to sway a lot of these voters, even though we, see polls that say it would have swayed X amount here and there. I don't know to what extent that's true. Maybe it would have. Obviously, I think that if that was allowed to spread on social media because the election was so close, you'd have a different ball game. But I do think that there are more important issues to the average swing voter than, this person has a scandal. And if the person that has the scandal is a part of the corrupt establishment, it probably would hurt the corrupt establishment more than if Trump has a scandal, because Trump's scandals seem to help him with some of those demographics, even if it just humanizes him. But I mean, that's pretty much kind of my take on it. I don't think you fully would disagree with that.
Yeah.
But anyways, appreciate you coming on, SoCal.
All right, thanks for having me.
All right, see ya. So I think that might do it. That might do it for the calls. We have another super chat. Olivia Williams says, is it DeSantis or DeSantis? You and Don Bacon. Oh yeah, Don Bacon, the representative from Nebraska, was going back and forth with me on Twitter the other day, saying he didn't co-sign to Biden's spending bills, but we could point to 5 or 6 that he did. He co-signed onto the omnibus bill with a pilot program for the mileage tax and all these other things that are just awful and hurt the voters of rural America, and not even just rural America, but just all voters pretty much in general. And it's these people just don't get it. Don Bacon's a loser. He's going to lose in 2024. I understand he has a blue district to cater to, but even then, they're not going to spare him at the end of the day. I mean, if he wins in 2024, it'd be a miracle. He's probably not winning past that given trends. And because the Nebraska state party is just so incompetent, they couldn't properly redistrict the state to keep the incumbents in favor. But either way, in terms of DeSantis or DeSantis, it's DeSantis. I mean, it's always been DeSantis. DeSantis, he's changing his name on the campaign trail. Shows they're experimenting. They don't know what they're doing. It's a focus group tested campaign. And this is the stuff that turns off a lot of voters out there. And rightfully so. Another thing I wanted to bring up about the DeSantis, the diehards. What percentage of them would actually vote for DeSantis over Biden if DeSantis even got the nomination? Because I feel like a lot of people will be supporting DeSantis in a primary just so they could get rid of Trump, but they also have ulterior motives, and a lot of them, for all we know, would just defect right to Biden. I mean, maybe not the people that are the diehard Cruz 2016 people. They probably would vote for him. A lot of them would vote for Trump anyways when it's all said and done, but a lot of these people that would defect wouldn't vote for Trump over Biden, or they claim to. How many would actually vote for DeSantis if he was the nominee? It seems like they're only supporting him to get rid of Trump, because all their tweets are about how Blump is evil, and they read just like resist libs from 2018, Trump's presidency, whatever. And it's you're not going to win over Republican primary voters by acting like the insufferable bastards you are. If you just replace your account with some woman with blue hair and with the blue wave emojis, then literally nothing would be different. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference with a lot of these people. And I even said back in the day, I said, if DeSantis runs against Trump back in November and he runs his campaign as this campaign that's going to be just never Trump, act like the Lincoln Project, and it's just not going to go anywhere, And that's exactly what he's done so far, even if he hasn't been attacking him actively a whole lot compared to his surrogates, but his surrogates have, and it's not a good look. And anyone that comes into contact with these people, they just get instantly turned off by them because they're just insufferable. And they only help Donald Trump, and I don't think that's their intention, but that is the effect of them. So that's the take. We will end the stream. This will be the last call for Super Chats. The last call for Super Chats right now. Anybody wants to send any Super Chats in, they can. If not, that's totally fine. That's totally cool. But we'll be ending in about a minute if we don't get any. If we do get any, we'll answer them and we'll get right back to it. So, let's see. It is what it is, guys. This is the fight. It continues. We cover a lot of different things. We don't want to just touch on the primary. We touched on Biden and his return to normalcy today. We covered the weakness within the GOP establishment with the Nevada governor, who is a disaster. We covered a lot tonight, and I think it's important that we continue to cover it. But when you have such a thing like an indictment like this and an arraignment that takes place in Florida, it's something that's going to be covered relentlessly because these people just keep giving me a reason to cover him. There's just no reason. Like if Trump was out there, the nominee, it was like presumptive, it was going to be him. He's running against like maybe Liz Cheney. She's down there at 5%. He's at like 80. It'd be like, okay, I'm not going to cover the primaries like nearly as much, if at all, other than to dunk on Cheney every once in a while. But what we do know is that that's not what's happened. These people are out there. They're dividing the party, and we got to push back against them. And yeah, they call me a grifter. We've lost some people because of it, but they'll be back. They'll be back when it's all said and done, because they'll end up knowing. Yeah, well, you were right all along. DeSantis had no shot, and we should have backed Trump from the get-go. And it's true because, like I said, there's no path for him. He can't even win Florida. What makes you think he's going to win Iowa or New Hampshire? Like, let's be real. So, guys, we're going to end the stream. Like the stream down below. Comment down below. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. And I will see you guys in a video probably tomorrow. And we'll do the stream debating on Thursday. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle, out.